fans, and welcome to episode 6 in the series, the AFC Bournemouth Best 11, the Eddie Howe years. And if you want to check out the other episodes where we built the goalkeeper, defence and right midfield, check it out in the playlist on the channel, or if there is a card at the top of the screen. But in this episode, we're going to go to the other wing. We're going to fill the left-hand side. But before we do that, please make sure you help the channel grow. We're trying to get to 500 before the season starts. So do hit a subscribe button for us. And if you do like the next 20 or 25 minutes, give us a like as well. Shall we see what Bournemouth fans we have on this episode? Let's get them on for episode 6. And we've got 2 new guests in this series. We've got Mr. Talking Cherries himself, Simon K. How you doing?
I'm very well. Only one shirt for this episode.
And how you doing, James? Good to see you again.
I'm good, man. Thank you for asking me on.
And as we always do, if you haven't seen this series before, what we're trying to do here, let's have a look at the rules. So we're trying to pick the best 11 AFC Bournemouth team from a pool of players that Eddie Howe's either signed or if they've made an appearance, their career can come into play. We'll debate selected players, contender list, and then we'll choose a player for that position at the end. Collectively, hopefully, no arguments. However, if there is any arguments, I do have my yellow card and my right card, so make sure you stay in line. And the contenders on this episode, and we'll look at some of the players also that didn't make the list in just a moment, but the contenders on this one is Arnaut Danjuma, Marc, Pugh, Max Gradel, and Junior Stanislas. Now, interestingly, if you saw the episode before, Junior Stanislas was on there as well. But guys, I thought there might have been another contender on this left-hand side, but he probably didn't get the cut because of being a bit of a...
I've no idea who you're referring to. It's redacted from my notes. The name's just literally redacted, so I wouldn't... Which one to say?
So Junior Stanislas gets a second chance, Simon. You happy with that?
Absolutely. He can play on both sides, so we know which is his favoured side.
And what we normally do then, guys, is we go to the wheel to decide. But first of all, Simon, heads or tails to see who goes first? I got a coin in my hand.
Heads.
Heads. You probably can't see it. And it is heads. So do you want to go first or second, or do you want to choose ends?
I'll choose ends.
So what I'll do is I'll move you to where James is. There you go. And James can go first. Right, we're going to go to the wheel decider. So we've got the 4 players in play. James, who are you going to get? Anyone in particular you're looking for, James, to start
off? I want Gradel, big style.
He might come back round, you know, or maybe not enough.
Oh, easy peasy.
But I'll tell you who you're going to get. In blue, Simon's shirt blue, is Mr. Marc Pugh. What a legend he was. Take it away, James.
Marc Pugh?
Yeah.
No, we obviously know who Marc Pugh is. Sorry. Marc's great. Marc, if you contact him on Instagram, he does have a conversation with you, which is, I know you've played football with him and stuff, but that was quite a buzz for me. I cooked a lamb shoulder about 2 months ago from his recipe on his Instagram profile, the football foodie or the foodie footballer. And I tagged him in my stories and I said, oh, he won't respond. And he did. He responded to it. He said, that was delicious. I told my son, I said, this is a Marc Pugh approved recipe. And he has tried lamb for the first time in his life. That is why Marc Pugh should play on the left-hand side. I don't know why I can't kick a ball with my left foot. I don't think I've ever kicked a ball with my left foot in my life, so I don't know why I'm on this, discussing who's the best left-sided midfielder in the Eddie Howe years. But Marc Pugh, the guy who scored the goal to take us to the Premier League, never not seen him give 100%. I first saw him when he made his sort of unofficial debut at an away match against Southampton in a pre-season friendly. I know quite a lot of Saints fans around here, and they invited me down to sit with the Saints fans to watch Bournemouth, which was a difficult affair, I would suggest. But the first time I saw him, he gets on the ball, and what I love about him, what I love about all these players actually, is they're players who like to run at defenders. They're players that scare defenses are scared of players that like to run at them. And Pugh's always had that in his arsenal. The years that Eddie Howe went away, there was always rumours that he was going to go, and he never left, because why would you leave the south coast of England? Bournemouth legend. It's a shoe-in. End the podcast. All the best.
and
I'll see you next time.
And £100,000, I think, James, was a compensation, wasn't it, when he sort of didn't sign a new contract at Hereford. But as he went through the leagues, James, he scored that goal, obviously, against Bolton, as we know, and scored a lot of big goals in that championship. Didn't he score the first goal in that championship season at Huddersfield, like the quickest goal of that season? Am I right in thinking?
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, and I think also to allude to your original point about signings, you hear so many people who are uneducated and don't understand the history of Eddie Howe's sort of managerial career. And they say, oh, he was terrible in the transfer market. He wasted money. He didn't waste money, £100,000. And like, what's really, I think, sad, the only downside to this is that Pugh, because of the way that the career sort of ended at Bournemouth, and because it was sort of petered out in terms of like non-contract renewals and a few loan signings, and then off to QPR and then a free agent, he never got the big send-off, and he fully deserves one. If we lived in an age of testimonials, as I grew up going to testimonials for a couple of quid with my uncle, then I think we could sell out Dean Court 10 times over for Marc Pugh's testimonial for sure.
Quick mention for Marc Pugh from you then, Simon. Big goal, scored that goal in the Premier League against West Ham as well. But big time player, assists, even when they're taken off him by Ariata.
Yeah, I mean, what I was going to add, I mean, it's a shame that Pugh came up first. It would have been nice for him to be at the end, almost. We'd given the kind of build-up. But, on and off the pitch, legend. I guess if you're going to pick a player who was there both on the pitch when you need him, but also off, he'd also be willing to talk to fans, not just about cooking, but anything he wanted to. The Cruyff, the chop, the effort, the Pugh-Daniels partnership, obviously the key goals we've spoken about. And he would just go the extra mile. And obviously for me personally, yes, the Bolton goal, obviously this kit and the West Ham goal. What an epic win away from home that was, first win in the Premier League. And then he also scored, I almost chose the pink kit, which was, I think, the first away win under lights at Palace. And he scored a good goal there, and we won 2-1. So that was a great game to be at as well. So just all positive stuff. You can't say a bad thing about the guy.
We should have just called this episode 6, Marc Pugh, end off. That's what we should have done, like James said. But anyway, we go back to the wheel because we have to be fair. And you're up next then, Simon. Who are you going to get? Max Gradel, Arnaut Danjuma, or Junior Stanislas? And you might get who James wanted. In there in the red, it's Max Gradel. Two sort of spells at AFC Bournemouth, then Simon, one on loan, I think, from Leicester, and then came back under the Eddie Howe era, the sort of Premier League, wasn't it? That might be that first season again. Absolutely.
I mean, before I get into the detail, there's very few players that can pull off headbands and sweatbands. Trevor Aylott did it. Shout out to Nonny. Obviously, he often has his sweatbands on. And of course, Maxi Gradel always got away with wearing those Ivory Coast sweatbands. So there's very few players that you can pick up and go, there you go. It wasn't just the sweatbands. I mean, look at the guy there. Look at that smile. I mean, look at those teeth. I mean, you can't get better looking than that, and that smile. I mean, whenever I bumped into the guy in the car park or, doing your kind of thing of trying to see a player or get a photograph, always a happy chap. So, off the field as a guy, he's kind of in the ilk of very few players that we've had that you can look at and kind of engage with the fun and the laughter. And he had that aura about him. On the pitch, brilliant first spell. Very unlucky with injuries. And I think that goes for some of the players we've had over the years, but massive talent. Probably in his second spell for me, not played in his best position. I always felt Maxi Gradel was a number 10. Or playing in that area behind the front man. He'd often just be played on the wing and he'd get defensive responsibilities. And we've had a few people like that over the years that, we can see the talent, but maybe they're not so good in defence. So I don't think he was played there enough. But when he did play, he'd give you all his effort and he was just special. He had those tricks, he had that speed and that smile on his face you could never go without. On his day, you just love the guy. A little bit stroppy from time to time, but, we love a little bit of stroppy in our players now and again. They don't all have to be lovely and amazing like Marc Pugh.
I was going to say, James, if there was a negative potentially with Gradel, is he always seemed to be looking for that next move, that next big move. I think he mentioned Chelsea a few times in interviews. And then if he didn't seem to get picked, the rumour was that he'd make certain people known that he wasn't happy.
Yeah, absolutely, he would, and there's reasons behind that. Just doing a little bit of a deep dive into Max Gradel, you can understand why that is. I want to start off by saying, if you want to, you can search out a YouTube clip of him playing for Leeds against Norwich and him getting sent off and refusing to leave the pitch. So that not only the Norwich fans are shouting at him to get off the pitch, but his own fans are shouting at him to get off the pitch as various stewards and his own captain drag him off the pitch because he got an unwarranted red card. But there's an article which isn't hard to find online about his upbringing in Côte d'Ivoire and his relationship with his dad, which I think sort of says a lot to his passion about wanting to play every game. And what I learned today as well is that he set up the Max Gradel Foundation, which is a charity that's self-funded by him and a small number of donors, which help kids that are born with sort of various physical deformities, if that's not a poor choice of language. Helps pay for their surgeries and also helps sort of as a sort of like an impromptu Make-A-Wish as well for people with life-limiting sort of conditions. He's a deeper subject than people give him credit for. And ridiculously quick feet, ridiculously fast as well. And in that first season in the Premier League, where we were going up as a good championship team with a real good team effort, he was the X factor in the first half of that season. You could give him the ball and he would make magic happen out of nothing. I loved him as a player. I thought he was magnificent.
If you want to play with spirit, and okay, it was a bit stroppy, but you can fall in love with that as a fan. There's something endearing about players like that. So he's not the Marc Pugh, but if you look at the four guys we've got here, he brings that je ne sais quoi from an aggressive perspective. And there are times when that would frustrate you, but on the whole, I only have positive memories about Max Gradel. And obviously when he scored that goal against, I think it was Swansea. I went over to Eddie to give him a hug. That was a powerful moment. So that showed the real man in him, that he had genuine emotion. And that even if that didn't come across all the time, he was a really, really good bloke.
Do you know what? This might not be nailed on, guys. You're building a good case here, and we're only 2 players down. Let's go back to the wheel then for James. We've got 2 players left. Who are you going to get, James?
Who's the other one?
It's going to be Arnaut Danjuma or Junior Stanislas.
I could talk
it
about
looks
either.
Like
because
Junior Stanislas' loyalty gets him a second chance in this episode as well. Junior Stanislas been with us since 2014. James scored some big goals, like we spoke about in the episode before with different guests. But yeah, let's take it away with Junior Stanislas.
Was he a player, and I may be getting my timelines mixed up, was he a player that Eddie Howe picked up twice? So he originally picked him up for Burnley and then brought him over to Bournemouth. So obviously an Eddie Howe team player, often asked to play on his weaker wing to accommodate, other wingers within the squad. I feel an injury-free Junior Stanislas, you look at his youth career, you look at his, the opportunities that he got at international level as a junior as well. There's certainly, an awesome player in there that was never truly unleashed to his full top level potential because of injuries, because of that inconsistency in terms of runs of games. But I believe, like I said, I think he's a fantastic player. I just struggle sometimes. And it happened, particularly with this season. There were a couple of games where he's very argumentative with other teammates on the pitch. Now, I don't know whether that's him wanting it as much as we all want it in terms of a win, or whether that's sort of like a bit of unprofessionalism on the pitch. I'd like to think that it's the former. But yeah, and could take an awesome free kick and wonderful memories as well with the home draw against Everton with the 2 late goals. He's a player, and I think he's, when you get to that elite level, and elite level is Premier League, of course, anyone that plays in the Premier League is playing at elite level, but when you go to the next level, you're talking margins, and I think he's margins away, and that's not probably down to his fault, as a player.
Didn't really speak about this on the last episode with the previous guest, Simon, but where does his future lie?
I don't know where else he can go, where he fits. I mean, obviously, the sad thing about Junior is his injury record, which has obviously been discussed in other situations, and I think that may go against him in terms of other options. I think obviously with when Goz left, then he got a 2-year contract at Watford. Obviously, he wasn't given that kind of contract here. I don't know that, but I'd imagine that's the case. So if they're holding out for 2-year contracts, Junior is one of those that I'd love him to stay. But if we can't and he gets a better offer somewhere else, he does. But the risk for him is those injuries, because he does tend to have, unfortunately, prolonged periods of time out, and sadly, often when he's almost reaching his peak.
He's if I may interject, he's 32 this November as well, which for a winger, you know, who relies so much on pace and turns of pace is, you know, that, like you said, the interesting thing will be what happens this summer.
And we did try to budget.
And sorry, if you've got Matt Ritchie in the team, you don't need him for free kicks and stuff anyway. So move on, as they say.
Well, Matt Ritchie's in our team. I don't know if he'll be in the team come August, but we'll see.
That's another subject, isn't it?
And back to the wall then for you then, James. It should be nailed on. It's going to be
that. It's Simon next.
It's me now. Do you want a yellow card, Kirk?
Actually, I'll give myself a yellow card.
Yeah,
myself.
I mean, you should really know what you're doing, referee. Come on.
There we go. The Dutch Danjuma magic, Arnaut Danjuma, struggled in his first season really at Bournemouth, but did have a lot of injuries. And then we tried to play him in a rigid 4-4-2 that I think we found out in the Championship wasn't his position. But in that Championship, he did come into his own, a man that could win a game at any time.
I think there's a theme here with particular players we've spoken about, and there's those that fit a 4-4-2 or a 4-4-1-1 on the left, and there's those that really don't. And I think Danjuma, for me, fits into a similar scenario as Maxi Gradel does, in that they have that intense magic and ability going forward. See what I did there? Danji magic. He likes that himself, doesn't he? And he's got it, and he flaunts it, and he loves himself, and rightly so. However, there were phases when he's incredibly frustrating. There's no doubt about it. He has amazing pace. I love it. He delivers more often than not. He's a flair player that every team that wants to achieve something needs in their squad. So from a raw pace perspective, he has a lot more than the other three playing on the side that we're talking about on the left. The other three don't really have that. He also has quick feet. He also has the ability to deliver and play with both feet at pace. Obviously, Pugh has that, but this guy has it in spades. So even though he's a little bit selfish and we've got frustrated with him from time to time, he's done enough to certainly be in this conversation. I wish he was able to stay around for longer. Maybe he will, so we can get to see him. And that performance last season, certainly near the end of it, if he does leave, he's added zeros to his price tag. So much respect to him for his effort.
Those 17 goals as well, come to you in a moment, James. Those 17 goals. We were lucky enough, me and you, Simon, to see the goal against Brentford in the first leg of the playoffs, and he scored some really good goals, like the one at Norwich. And it's just a shame if fans, our AFC Bournemouth fans, don't get to see more of those moments.
And I think what you also have with him, unlike the other three guys that we have on this list, is you get goals. If you want an ultimate goal scorer playing on the left, who doesn't actually have to be a team player, and obviously that depends on what the team ethos is here, he gives you something the others don't. Max doesn't give it to you in the same way, playing on the left midfield. Pugh doesn't give it to you, and Junior certainly doesn't. So for me, I'm all about what's the plan, who's the man, what's the team. Something here with this makes me feel if we need an out-and-out pace man in this team who you can let go and do what he wants to do without any defensive responsibility, he's the man.
And James, he has got a healthy contract still, I think, until 2024. Now, I don't know if you've had a chance to speak to Scott Parker at all, James, but does he like luxury players?
I've spoken to a lot of Fulham fans, and they seem to think that he might take Danjuma and play him as a lone striker behind a back eight. We spoke about Danjuma last season. I think he's a luxury player, and people needed to get their heads around that. I think it's not too far from the truth to say that he almost single-handedly secured promotion for us last season. He is an X-factor player. It doesn't happen that often that you have a player come into your side that can make something happen from nothing and that genuinely makes defences, afraid every time he gets the ball, which you saw towards the end of the season. His reputation started to precede him. And I do feel as well, other players got relegated and didn't try for the club and didn't want to play in a COVID era and didn't want to get the club promotion. And Danjuma, with a frustrated first season in the Premier League, which he was brought in to play for, he missed out on that, played almost every game, and was more or less top goal scorer and was sensational, I thought. And just look at Netherlands' performance in the Euros without him.
That's certainly amazing. What he'd be saying, James. He'd definitely be saying that.
He'd be on his way to Wembley, playing us on Wednesday.
Hey, Kirk, I've got a question for you, Kirk. If Stanislas gets 2 chances in your team, is Danjuma going to get another opportunity in kind of a floating role behind the number 9?
Don't know. There's a lot of players to fit in 2 CMs and obviously 2 strikers. There's a lot of contenders there. So probably not. But he might make this one because this is your 30-second sort of warning now. Who are you going to pick for that left midfield? Are you going to agree with Simon and James? Have a think now. We'll be back in 30. So who's going to take that left midfield position? Is it going to be Genius Stanislas, Max Gradel, Marc Pugh or Danjuma? And James kicked off. So we're going to come to Simon for this one in the second half. And Simon, who are you going to pick for that left midfield? How did you come to that decision?
Oh, it's obviously going to be Marc Pugh for all the reasons we spoke about. Even though if it's a team where you need some pace from somewhere and you haven't got it anywhere else, I skew towards Danjuma. I also love Maxi's smile and his sweatbands. So obviously there's a bit of everything. And I love Stanislas for other reasons, but I'm going to have to stick with Pugh on balance, all the variables. He always puts the effort in. He's always your man. Even if he came off the bench, you felt you could rely on him to do something. Even a ridiculous Cruyff turn in the box to win a penalty or whatever. And he won a couple. It admitted himself, that he won a couple that might have been slightly on the edge. I'll have to pick him.
Is this the battle of the Instagram, James? Are you going to agree with Simon or are you going to give someone else a chance?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think they're all quality players. I really do. And I think they've all added something to the Cherries experience, in their own ways. And I just think you can't look past longevity. You can't look past that sort of loyalty throughout those times, consistency as well. I think Pugh was very rarely injured. But also I think you've picked Daniels, haven't you, on the left-hand side?
Mm.
Him and Daniels. I mean, it was like, it's like a latter day sort of, who was the guy who played behind Elliott, Wade Elliott, back in the day as left back?
Not Jamie Vincent.
It might have been Jamie Vincent. No. I'm saying what I'm thinking. It's like latter day Paul Morella, Mark O'Connor. That's what I'm thinking of. It's Pugh for me.
It's Pugh, and do you know what? All top quality players, like you said, and all gave their special moments to the Cherries. But you just can't look past Marc Pugh, and you just mentioned it there, James. Daniels and Pugh on that left-hand side. That's looking a bit familiar, isn't it, Simon? We've got Francis and Richie on one side and Pugh and Daniels on the other.
I mean, you're not really going to be surprised, are you? I mean, that was it. That was the journey that we've been on through the leagues. They even did it at the top level. So I don't think, even if you go back through other periods of history, that you'll find a better period of time on either flank than those two. And the beauty about those two flanks is that both those midfield players would track back. We had wonderful overlaps on both sides. If Frano went forward, Richie would sometimes pull back. If one side went forward, the other side would pull back. There was just wonderful synergy between both sides of the pitch. And that ultimately is why they really have to be there. I mean, perhaps what we could do is get Pugh to wear some Ivory Coast sweatbands on his wrists and we're all good.
It was partnerships though, wasn't it, James? And Pugh Daniels down that left-hand side was just lethal.
It's just synonymous, isn't it? It's completely synonymous with that era of Howe in terms of, the pace and the attack happens because you have options down the wings and you have people willing to break forward and also people willing to cover, the people that are breaking forward. It was such an exciting time to watch Bournemouth play after. Oh, it was though, wasn't it? I mean, I know we can literally consign it to the history bin. Now we're in the Parker era, however long that lasts, right? But that was after years of like Jimmy Quinn and like, bless him, Kevin Bond trying his hardest and all that sort of stuff. No, it was though, wasn't it? Because it was ultimately, like we used to play like under Mel Matron, we played reasonably good football. Sean O'Driscoll's brand of tiki-taka and not signing a single player over 5.5 foot, you know, that whole era, and defending a 1-goal lead constantly, you know, and always losing every game 2-1. But just to see Eddie just come forward and just like play these systems and get the players behind him, and it fell apart when that mentality kind of dissipated slightly for whatever reason, we don't know. But yeah, it was an exciting time to be a Cherries fan, that's for sure.
James, brilliant to have you on again and bringing your energy. Love it.
Thank you, man. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Simon, great to have you on. Keep up the good work with the Talking Cherries as well.
Pleasure. Lovely to see you. I'll see you again. Nice to see you again, James.
Nice
Be well. The right choice.
And thank you to you, the Bournemouth fans, for checking out this episode. You're probably not surprised that those wings are complete with those players, but now we're going to move into the middle on the next episode, and we're going to see who's going to feed those wingers. I don't think this will be as easy, but until the next video, from me, Simon and James, take care of yourself. See you soon. Up the Cherries.